In 3, 2, 1, and then it'll take a second, and we are live. Hello, 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 and welcome again to a little bit late because of technical difficulties. They do happen. I finally figured out why they were happening, though. So anyway, welcome to the final and one I have been very looking forward to live stream of the Patriot Act digital protest. My name is Yari. I use they them pronouns, and I am the PNC chair. And here with me is Mitch. Mitch, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Mitch DeVello. I'm the Swarm Care Manager of the United States Pirate Party, and I am from the Illinois Pirate Party.
Yes, indeed. And we are here to read a letter given to us by one of our very own Muslim pirate members who has been so kind and gracious enough to provide us with this take on the Patriot Act. And we are going to be reading it out to you and then also giving sort of some discussion on it and a little bit of discussion on the letter, discussion on the Patriot Act in the light of this letter. So I'm very excited for this and very, very grateful to this particular member and also to the rest of the members of our server for being so willing to participate in this. So please, yeah, I'm gonna say let's just dive right in, yeah? Mitch, you're still with me, right? I lost your video. If Mitch is not with me, nope, you're here. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm just gonna dive right in. And I'm gonna read this letter. So, get my reading voice on. Ahoy, my friends and fellow pirates. I come to you today with the betterment of the world in mind. I come to you to shine light on what has been swept away by many. When you think of the Patriot Act, many think of the illegal surveillance and violation of rights, which is absolutely true, but we are missing one key detail: the impact and discriminatory policies it enforces on Muslims, such as I. For starters, the Inspector General of the United States provides a Patriot Act complaint hotline, but it also happens to be, in quotes, that the majority of the complaints comes from Muslims and Arabs. As many, I believe, oh yes, okay. Keep reading. As many of you may know, Japanese immigrants were commonly denied citizenship because they were profiled as not being loyal to the United States during World War II. Today, we stand at a similar crossroads. It must be noted that due to the Patriot Act and other anti-Muslim sentiment, hate crimes against Muslims are on the rise. In 2001, as per the FBI's Uniform Crime Reporting Program, 481 hate crimes towards Muslim and Arab Americans were reported. This represents a significant increase above the 28 instances documented in 2000. Very. The Patriot Act is also being used as an excuse by institutions to blacklist Muslim accounts because their names happen to be similar to those on the government's surveillance lists. Unfortunately, in politics, there exists a Team Red and a Team Blue. But on government surveillance and restricting people's civil liberties, they're on the same team. But the Pirate Party knows America can do better, and we can. The Pirate Party supports devoting more resources to helping targets of racial profiling get access to justice and to hold perpetrators accountable. They support instituting programs to eliminate profiling and require national data collection programs on the race or ethnicity, religion, and gender of individuals to be stopped. That is something no other political party in the United States offers. And that's why the Pirate Party gives Muslims like me a safe roof to be under. To be clear, a lip from someone else, not myself, but
Yes, but fantastically written, fantastically read.
very well written.
The there I'm glad to hear from perspectives like from our pirate, uh, knowing that they've had very unique perspectives growing up in a post 9/11 world. And when we talk about the Patriot Act and the effect on the Patriot Act, these surveillance programs a lot of times are impacting Muslims and Arab Americans, and it's often at the hands of false pretenses. We how did we not see the torture methods come out of this, which we realized we were torturing people to get confessions out of them, which it's a whole new can of worms that I don't want to really dive too deep into. But
I mean,
this
it's
all
important.
stems from the Patriot Act, and it is all very important. And
Yeah.
I can remember growing up, and I would watch shows like NCIS, where every time there was Muslim representation on TV, it was a terrorist. And
Yeah.
it was they were always raiding a mosque, and there was always some type of jihadist group in the mosque, and they were always trying to take them down. And you look back at those type of programs, and they perpetrate that in order to make things like the Patriot Act malleable. Like you can consume that and be like, oh, well, they're just protecting our citizens from these terrorist Muslims. But, these terrorist Muslims have been living in the United States as long as you have. A lot of them are refugees now due to the imperial nature of the United States. A lot of them came here because of the imperial nature of Britain and France. And I feel as though the Patriot Act is just a continuation of punishment on the Middle East and its peoples.
One thing I think is very important to note. I just want to double check myself. Population by religion, but I'm pretty sure the majority of people in the world. No, okay, it is technically Christianity just above, apparently, but Islam has a vast swath of the world population as well. It's only just under Christianity, and I think we tend to forget that, especially with some of the other religions that were persecuted by the Patriot Act as well, like Sikhism and other groups like that.
Right, exactly. People who were confused for Muslims because, again, media depiction will just show these terrorists with beards and headgear. So clearly everyone with, the depiction and the arrogance, the lack of knowledge of the diversity in this country to paint all Muslims and all brown people, which is ultimately what they're doing. Brown people of the Middle East and Central Asia, they're all just terrorist Muslims. They just and it creates a dangerous environment, in a country that always preached that we are, unified, that all people can come here and we're a melting pot. For the last 20 years, we've done a great job of making sure that melting pot was free of Muslim influence.
Yeah.
You know?
And I mean, and I think, I mean, there's definitely, there's definitely a certain irony to, of course, two white folks sitting on a stream here, talking about, all the discrimination that's been happening in the U.S. with regards to this. Um, uh, two white folks who, I mean, I don't know about you. I am tend to identify as a-religious. Um, with regards to this. But I certainly have not experienced a lot of the religious persecution that is talked about. Although I have a number of friends who have, like, I have not experienced this firsthand, and so it's. I think it's really, all that more important to create those environments to think about, like, how are we creating environments, how are we moderating our actions to create environments within our parties, within our organization, within, with our actions and words, like, how are we creating environments that will make space for this letter, for this sort of for those communities who have been persecuted by this sort of awful legislation. Yeah, I don't know. I think something to really keep an eye on as we continue growing, because there's definitely always a it's easy to ignore this issue if you want to.
Yes. I will say this. Yes, we are two white folk talking about anti-Islamic discrimination in the United States. And while on surface level that might seem funny, there is something to be said about experiences that I'm sure you and I have heard and seen behind closed doors. What you might see out in the public and how that Muslim and Arab Americans might be treated in the United States. You can hear the wheels turning in the white community. The average depiction of the terrorist was the average depiction of the Muslim in the white neighborhood kid's mind. The way they spoke of Muslims, the way they spoke of Arabs, they were always terrorists. They were always this. They were always that. There was never a clear image. The thing that always bothered me the most is I can remember white conservatives talking about that Obama was Muslim and he was the Antichrist. Which again, so you asked me about my religion. I was raised Catholic, but I don't know if I believe in the divinity of Jesus. All I know is he was a real human being. He was really killed by the Roman Empire, and his message was beautiful. And I think that it's so beautiful that there's a reason that a billion people do follow it, including Muslims who view Jesus as a prophet. It's impossible for the Antichrist to be a Muslim. And it's preposterous to me that the media has painted that an entire religious group to be satanic, to be evil, as if we learned nothing from the 1940s of painting an entire religion to be at fault and to be evil and schemy and destroying us from the inside. It's disgusting that we learn nothing. To top it off, I just the Patriot Act, the way it has affected Americans is one thing, but the way it has disproportionately affected Arab Americans is another thing. And to have that perspective read out loud and to say that the Pirate Party provides a space where safety and equality can be promoted, where our pirate who wrote this, which I'm not sure if he wants to be named or not, but He
I'm defaulting on the side of no because I'm
right,
pretty sure the answer is no.
right. I've kept him anonymous for that reason.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, to thank you so much for writing that and for telling us about your experiences, because it is important to talk about it and the Patriot Act is evil, and what it has done to a disproportionate number of Americans is heinous. It is disgusting, and it needs to be talked about. And what it has done to the general populace in its attitude towards Islamic and Muslim citizens and Arab citizens, citizens who weren't even Muslim to begin with. We need to talk about that, and thank you for talking about it.
I think the connection, the powerful connection that I think is made here in this letter that I really like, which you also touched on a little bit, Mitch, here is the connection to World War II, and especially in this letter, the connection to the internment of Japanese Americans, which is similar to what the Patriot Act allows, and because of that allowance, because of that affordance, what has happened in many cases, you know, because it may not be, on the same visual scale, right? But we still have and still see this idea of like, oh, well, we can just make up a crime for you based on profiling, based on what you look like, based on where you go to practice your faith, and then say, now we lock you up, and that's it. Um,
In the
and
active pursuit of making criminals, to convince otherwise innocent Americans to hey, you should create a
yeah,
bomb, you should blow something up. Ha, we got your ass.
yeah,
It's disgusting. What can they wanted,
yeah.
and for all the demonization that many empires of the past have gotten, I've never heard of such an empire to purposely go out of its way to create criminals to lock up to prove a point. Heinous was a word I used earlier, and it's still it just these acts of just inhumanity.
Hmm.
Uh, to for what, oil? Prove a point so we can keep doing it.
A great question. Like what is the purpose? Is it I don't think there is one. That's the thing. It is the continuance of the security state, right? It is the maintenance of power of the security state, and no matter what the purpose is, it is clearly wrong. And I appreciate, like in the letter, um, uh, from our friend, how he mentions this idea of like, hey, yeah, what we are focusing on and what is specific to this is this idea of like, let's not only eliminate profiling, but not collect this information on, or not let the government collect and keep information on your ethnicity and religion, um, because if they're you know keeping a hold of that, right? Using it for like specific programs is one thing, but then like keeping a hold of that in databases is where we start to get like, oh, okay, now we can use that information to look you up and start like, yeah, and
I agree. It's disgusting for the government to do it if there wasn't malicious, or if there wasn't a ulterior motive for doing it behind it, which there is. The fact that they would be collecting any citizen's information, and keeping it and storing it for just in case you get you. It's the idea that the persecution of our citizens is going to continue under this act, especially just for what, being born into a religion. being born under a certain ethnicity,
The
can be persecuted.
what's really interesting is this there's, I think, one thing that's commonly mentioned, right, when talking about the in so I listened to this wonderful Radio Lab piece about the Patriot Act recently, and one thing that they mentioned and that I also did some research on afterwards is how the surveillance community would, once you start looking up someone, right, even if you have no crimes to actively pursue right now, because of the infrastructure of the Patriot Act, they're looking around to see who to investigate into people, because it's this sort of like, almost like an ex post facto sort of thing. It's like, oh, okay, like who might be ready to do some crimes? Who might be ready to do some crimes? We're not looking at crimes after they happen. We're looking around to see who might be ready to do some crimes. And so, preventative policing in a weird way, which is never good. Preventative community maintenance is one thing. Preventative policing is a whole different set. So they're looking around, and then they start building up these portfolios on the specific people that they're looking at. But of course, because of the way these people are trained, they're doing racial profiling in their looking. So they're like, oh, we're looking around, but we're not looking at everyone. We're looking at the people who we think might do crimes, or the people who get the most complaints, as our friend, the Muslim pirate who has written this letter, pointed out, right? The people who get complaints are going to be, especially after an event such as the terrible terrorist attacks in 2001, right? Like, like everyone's on alert, and like there's this aura of national fear around that. And so all these complaints come pouring in, and we just set up this national security system that's enabling these complaints to be processed into files and dossiers on these people. And now, whenever we next have court cases, we have a dossier on them. They must have done something, because we have a whole file folder on them. But it's just filled with nothing. But we have a whole dossier on them, so they must have done something wrong. It was that sort of attitude. And so it's like the surveillance justifies the surveillance.
And just making a nation out of criminals where there's no criminality to be found. The surveillance of these citizens, again, it's just what is the point? It begs the question, what's the point at that point? If not for the fact just to do it, just to have that power over us, just to use such a horrific event like 9/11 as an excuse, because correct me if I'm wrong, but was the Patriot Act written immediately after 9/11, or was this not an act that was in Congress for a bit?
It was 178 days. No. So the anniversary is October 26th of the Patriot Act. September 11th, October 26th, whatever that exact number is. It was not, I'm doing that math wrong. We have it up on our petition website, which you should go sign if you haven't already. I can double check it. 100, no wait, I'm thinking of the number of pages on it. It's 128 pages. I don't know how many days that is, but it was very short, right? That's a month and a half. Not even a month and a half, right? So, what? 40
Right.
days, something like that. So that's really quick for a law, for a law, especially for a law this long, right? Most of this from what I understand, was either written very quickly or was pulled in from bits that people had already been proposing in some way or another. So so it's like security folks came out of the woodwork and were like, hey, like, let's put this in, let's put this in, let's put this in. Um, and then it all kind of like got jammed together, and some parts were written, from a blank slate, but it was mostly prefabricated.
So then you can't call this bill anything but reactionary. This was written out of fear, in post haste. In a post 9/11 world, we've got to do something. We've got to write something up. We've got to, and look at the repercussions. The government doesn't care because the our elected officials, the ones who voted on it, they're still the ones in power. They do not care how it has affected us because they still don't see. We haven't had any officials who grew up with the Patriot Acts. We haven't had short of someone like AOC and the squad who are young enough to have gotten in, and they don't have any power yet.
Yeah, I mean, we do have some younger members in Congress who have sort of grown up with the Patriot Act, but even that said, like, to that point, yeah.
When the architects of the Patriot Act are still calling the shots, it's hard to.
Well, here's my big question: like, what, like, when are we going to get even, like, a recognition of, when are we even going to get a recognition of the of how much damage this has done to the communities that have been impacted, right? Has there been any? I don't think so, really. Like, not by Congress, not by the executive branch.
For how much damage we've caused to Vietnam, or how much damage we caused during the Japanese internment? These are things that I don't know if the empire.
There are museums, right? Like that's about what you get, right? Like, there are some publicly funded museums, and like, and yeah, and that's why I think, like, the comparison to, the Japanese internment is really apt, because it's just like, this awful thing that, you have to wonder, are we ever going to get any sort of, is that community ever going to get some sort of, even an apology, let alone, I mean, I'm hopefully we can get, like, some sort of legislative break from this and move on, at least. But honestly, I don't know.
I wonder if I cannot imagine the violence the community I'm about to mention received during the time period was equivocal. But I couldn't. I don't have the stats on me, so I really cannot speak on it. Nor is anyone who was around back then around now. But you think about, like, the anti-German sentiment of World War I, where things were getting renamed because they're like, no, that's German. That's like, what do you mean? Sauerkraut. That's Liberty cabbage. And they had the de-German everything. And, I'm sure the persecutions of those, especially those who were ethnically German, I can only imagine the hardship that they must have been facing, and just comparably speaking, have we ever said we're sorry for the persecution you have faced? Have we ever apologized to the Japanese for the same? Have we ever apologized, to anybody for, have we ever apologized to the native to the
Let
indigenous?
let alone given any sort of compensation.
Right. Well, we have compensated one group in history, to be clear. We compensated slave owners when we freed the slaves. We paid them reparations.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's ooh.
Yes, that's very.
Was it really?
Yes,
Was
we
it
really did
really?
do that.
Ooh. Ooh.
Yes,
I gotta look that up.
yeah,
That's
slave
that's
owners got paid reparations for
spicy.
losing their slaves.
Oh, that's spicy. Okay. Oh, big stretch. Okay. Wow. Oh. Okay. Well, I mean, here's what I would like to do. Frankly, I don't know about you, Mitch. I would like to take a minute and sometime maybe we have some more comments to share about the content of this fantastic letter. Um, before we go back to that, but sometime before we end, I would like to uh, go back into this letter and uh, just maybe go through a bit by bit and read a bit and talk about it and read a bit and talk about it and read a bit and talk about it, and then wrap up there.
Yeah,
I think that way those who are just joining us can get a chance to hear it again. That way, anyone who's forgotten about it, 'cause we read it at the beginning, can get a chance to hear it again, etc. Um, and we can remind ourselves, what we're focusing on a bit.
of course.
Yeah. Were there any other comments you wanted to make about what we were just?
Uh, no, I will say that that if our imperial practices in the Middle East weren't bad enough, using the Patriot Act and the demonization of Muslim Americans and Arab Americans in this country to justify it further is disgusting. I used heinous too many times. It's disgusting, and
There aren't enough
truly
words.
the it doesn't make me proud of the United States when the
Yeah.
United States pulls shit like this.
Yeah. It's I think what's interesting is also how much there are no winners. Is that a term I want to use here? I don't even think it is, but there, for lack of a better term, I suppose, there are no people who get out of this and are unscathed by the Patriot Act, right? Because as I'm sure Bosun and Megan talked about yesterday, the people out on the front lines as well, you know, they were they were uh, they were their stuff was viewed as well, right? Like their texts and stuff were looked at. So even though they didn't receive nearly the same level of profiling and assaults and um, you know uh, uh, imprisonment, etc. There's no one who gets out of this chalk free, right? Like it is not the kind of act that really is helpful for anyone except the security state, um, which is just it's like why yeah it's just not good. It's just not good. um yeah.
Yeah, I have no, I have nothing to add to that. I think that sums it up very well.
uh do you want to read a chunk of this
Of
and then we
course.
can yeah
Uh,
pause
so
whenever you think it's appropriate and we can
you got it. Uh, so just to reiterate for everyone watching, this is a rehashing of the letter from our Muslim pirate.
one of a few.
One of a few. Our fellow Muslim pirate. Ahoy, my friends and fellow pirates. I come to you today with the betterment of the world in mind. I come to you to shine light on what is swept away by many. When you think of the Patriot Act, many think of the illegal surveillance and violation of rights, which is absolutely true. But we are missing one key detail: the impact and discriminatory policies and forces on Muslims, such as I. For starters, the Inspector General of the United States provides a Patriot Act complaint hotline, but it also happens to be, those are in quotes, that the majority of the complaints comes from Muslims and Arabs.
All right, so I think
Yes.
pause, pin in that. Um, yeah, like this is to the point here. Like this is definitely something that's um, this is generally a part of this act that's talked about a bit less, even though it's mentioned in the act itself, as Radio Joe pointed out, which is that like the act itself is like, oh, we promise we won't use this to discriminate against uh, Muslims and Arabs. We promise. um, which is interesting.
And
Um,
it is. I think the term used was profiling, or you compared it to racial profiling, the way that you know you see the racial profiling happen on the streets domestically. It's targeting someone based on how they look, in anticipation or in expectation
mhm,
of them committing or doing a crime.
mhm.
It is wrong. It is racist, and it needs to be addressed. And I'm glad we're addressing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's what this is this system of the Patriot Act, and this is, I mean, even just this, like, you know, what we talk about here is I think the reason why this is glossed over oftentimes is because it's a systematic, it's a systematic oppression. It's a systematic thing, right? Is that what you're looking at here is a system that is designed such that it favors racial profiling and racial oppression, right? And it favors religious persecution, right? So like it is very, very easy for the security state and for those involved in it to use this towards those ends. And it's a little bit harder for them to not use it towards those ends. So it's like, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to get Muslims and Arab Americans in jail and profiled and locked up and assaulted and murdered and like like all this awful shit is going to happen to them and like
And again,
are we surprised?
and they're not stupid. You can then take all this data. You can be like, look at what we have on these Muslims we suspected to be terrorists. This is why we need to invade Iraq and Iran, because all these terrorists. And it,
Yeah.
so I've used the phrase justifying imperialism already, but
Mm,
they
mm.
are they use such a heinous act there to
It's a
continue
good word.
to 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 thirst on for minerals, for oil, for resources. Scary enough, water soon. And it's just to use something like the Patriot Act to turn you against your own fellow citizen and see
Mm.
he's not your fellow American. He's just a threat. That
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
uh
Yeah.
horrid.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm pull up the
Yeah.
thesaurus in the second tab, so I have this.
Dude, there's only so many words we can pull up for something that is as heinous as this. Um, uh, yeah, so I think this is very important, right? And that system that favors this, that justifies imperialism, it is going to be true. Like that's a really good point that most of the complaints are going to be about sources that are just happen to be Muslims and Arabs. Yeah.
It's a key to the puzzle. It's a key factor. You You have this, which then you can build the resources to justify. Meanwhile, your media is portraying Muslims as terrorists, getting it in the minds of the citizen that, oh my God, all Muslims are terrorists, and I'm being patriotic by reporting them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're playing a role in United States imperialism, and it's exactly as they intended it to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's abhorrent. Abhorrent.
Abhorrent. Yes. Ooh, that's a good one too. I'll continue. So, as many of you may know, Japanese immigrants were commonly denied citizenship because they were profiled as, quote, not being loyal, end quote, to the United States during World War II. Today, we stand at a similar crossroads. It must be noted that due to the Patriot Act and other anti-Muslim sentiment, hate crimes against Muslims are on the rise. In 2001, as per the FBI's Uniform Crime Reporting Program, 481 hate crimes towards Muslim and Arab Americans were reported. This represents a significant increase above the 28 instances documented in 2000.
And we have to be clear that the increase in Muslim hate crimes came post 9/11. September 11th is the end of the year. So we're talking about 481. Get that number out loud. 481 cases of anti-Muslim violence arise from the 28 in the year 2000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are so many stories, and it is not that hard to look them up. And I really recommend that anyone who is listening or watching, please take the time to go and look up these stories, to go, find a podcast or a YouTube video, just like it something like look up, Muslim or Arab American stories about 9/11 or post 9/11, like perspectives on that, because they will tell you about how they were harassed, they were scared, they knew, a lot of them, those communities, they knew right away, like, oh gosh, we're going to have the weight of so much expectation on our shoulders, so much expectation to be more loyal, to present as more loyal than ever before, because otherwise, what is going to happen? You're going to get shot.
One of the more harrowing stories I remember, and it really, there are bloody stories, there are like violent stories. This one is really, it's almost like it sums up everything without having to get into graphic detail. Was right after 9/11, the story took place from the perspective of the boy's sister, but she had said that her mother had came to her brother and asked, "Do you want to change your name?" Because his name was Osama. And the idea that these people were in danger because of their name, that it's almost like a target on their back. That suddenly I have to hide who I am, some I was born as, some I've never known a life other than being this, because if I don't, my life's I'm fucked. I'm in danger. And not just Arab Americans who were Muslim either. How many Syrian Christians felt the wrath? How many Druze and Sikhs have been discriminated? How many Hindi Indians have been discriminated? The lack of education and the lack of explanation and representation, proper representation in the media, to explain the differences, the key differences between these cultures, and the just to label them, well, they're all Muslims, so they're all terrorists, and that's why it's good that we're invading Afghanistan. It is nefarious. And I
Oh, I appreciate the thesaurus words. Very good. Yeah. No, that's a very, I think that's a good short anecdote about that. And yeah, so
I will continue on with the letter. Uh, the
please.
Patriot Act is also being used as an excuse by institutions to blacklist Muslim accounts because their names happen to be similar to those on the government surveillance list. Unfortunately, in politics, there exists a red team and a blue team, but on government surveillance and restricting people's civil liberties, they're on the same team, and that's true. There was one senator that voted against the Patriot Act in the year 2001.
Uh, uh, that's a
Was it
good
Ron
question.
Johnson? I think from Wisconsin, no?
Really?
Pretty sure it was the one Wisconsin senator.
Hang on. I'm looking it up. Keep chatting.
This is a bipartisan issue. They both are perfectly accepting of keeping your civil liberties at bay because they could sleep at night knowing the terrorist threat has been subdued. There is no terrorist threat. They're creating it. This is an excuse to take away civil liberties, and it's disgusting.
Russ Feingold.
Russ
Yeah.
Feingold.
Russ Feingold, not Ron Johnson, but Russ Feingold, the Democrat from Wisconsin. That is honestly
You,
so as a former Wisconsinite, honestly, I'm A, proud, and B, surprised. Russ Feingold does not strike me as immediately as the sort of person who would vote against the Patriot Act, but go Russ Feingold, I guess. Cool. Everyone else voted for it.
Everyone, you know,
everyone else voted for it. Yeah. Shit.
So just goes to show that only one person out of 100 of our elected officials said we shouldn't be spying on the people that put us here.
Mm-hmm.
That the people we're supposed to be serving and representing, we would rather spy on them and collect information so we can get rich off of people like Raytheon going into these countries and exploiting these people. Mm-hmm. We thank you, Russ Feingold.
They are two different people.
They are two very different people at that.
Yeah.
It's the R's.
Yeah. It is. That is interesting. Yeah. No. This is like everyone voted the same except for there's one person. Yeah. Please continue with the.
Of course. But the Pirate Party knows America can do better. And we can. The Pirate Party supports devoting more resources to helping targets of racial profiling get access to justice and hold perpetrators accountable. They support instituting programs to eliminate profiling and require national data programs on race or ethnicity, religion, or gender of individuals to be stopped. That is something no other political party in the United States offers, and that's why the Pirate Party gives Muslims like me a safe roof to be under. And it's true. We are a party of the people. We are a party of the working class. We are not a party of the government spying on you. We are the party of transparency and privacy. We believe the government is supposed to be serving you, not spying on you, not making a criminal out of you. It's supposed to be making you better, not worse. And you know, the United States Pirate Party does believe the U.S. can be better. And we do believe that discrimination based on things like race, religion, gender, it should be stopped. And keeping tabs on it, it's what's it matter? What does it matter?
Your information is your own.
Exactly.
And so you should one of the things that I think was a real. I mean, it might honestly. I kind of want to look back at this idea and see if it was one of the pirate pushes that got this into law in the first place. But the European law on information access on the internet. I can't remember what it's called, but it's the one that means all your internet cookies now have you can customize your cookies now online, and it's like a European law that makes it so that they have to do that now. I can't remember what the acronym is. It starts with a D. But it's a new European law, and stuff like that, where basically what that also means on the back end is that all websites, if you delete your account with a website, or if your account is inactive for a certain amount of time, they are required to delete all your information now because of that law.
Good.
Yeah, I know. It's like an actual win. It's an actual win for information and data security and personal privacy. It's huge. It's huge.
I had a delayed reaction just because like good things don't happen like that here. So I'm like, what?
I know.
I
know.
almost couldn't believe it.
I know. What we need is something like that protects you with government data collection.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is not the case yet.
Exactly.
And that would be right, because the security state, you can still have companies can only go so far. Unfortunately, like when you talk about Facebook, Twitter, well, less so Twitter, because Twitter is actually still relatively small compared to Facebook. Like Facebook, especially Google, these other companies can put together whatever information that they can about you, and really no one can stop them, because even these European laws doesn't really matter too much for them. So there's that problem also, but like the security state as well, they can just run rampant and do whatever they want because these laws don't apply. So it would be nice if we could do something. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I think this letter really succinctly and effectively tells us why this stuff is important, and I appreciate the examples and the callbacks to other historical events, and also just how so thank you. I want to say thank you to our friend who submitted the letter. It is very much appreciated, and your perspective is appreciated. Yes. I don't know any other things that you have to say, Mitch, about this. I am happy to riff or wrap up.
I think we're good to wrap up. I guess the only thing I have to say is we need to do better. The Patriot Act is it's been 20 years of this. Mm-hmm. And as a humane democratic society that preaches freedom, we're all wrapped up in COVID right now. And I understand that a lot of people might think that the masks are a hindrance on freedom, or the vaccines are a hindrance on freedom. We've had a hindrance on freedom for the last 20 years. And we've had a lot more Americans affected by it than simply wearing a mask. These livelihoods have been changed under this law.
People have died. Like been murdered.
Yes.
Like died in prison. like died in
Yes.
Like the pandemic is important. Yeah. Close Guantanamo Bay.
That's a big one for me.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah.
It's still open.
Patriot Act,
still open. It's still, no, it's on topic. It's on topic. It's not open technically because of the Patriot Act, but it's very much related.
Right. It was very much active under the Patriot Act, though.
Yes.
And we
Yes.
must, Lord have mercy. I can't mention Guantanamo without like wanting to rant about Cuba either. So I feel like that'll get us off topic. So we better start.
Yeah. We should...
And the
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, thank you to our friend who submitted this letter, and thank you to you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I thank you as well for hosting, and thank you to our pirate for writing such a great letter.
Yes.
I loved hearing your perspective, and more so, I love being able to talk about it and discuss it, and you allowing us to talk about it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And thank you to our viewers at home. Of course. Of course, the classic. Please remember that this is, of course, the final part of our Patriot Act protest live stream. The link to the petition to pull the plug on the Patriot Act is down in the description. If you have not signed it, please, 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 please sign it. I want to get to 100 signatures. Send it to your friends, please. This is really important. I know, 100 signatures doesn't sound like much, but it can make a difference. So we want to at least get there. If we can get there, that'd be great. Cool. That's the bulk of it. Check us out at uspirates.org. Thank you very much for watching.
Of course.
Thanks for joining. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
And we are out.